Hello, welcome to another episode of How Do We Make This Damn Thing Work? What we have today is a Remington 521T. This is the smaller, lighter version of the 513T. It is a 22 caliber target rifle made from the late 40s to the late 60s. The 513T was the full-size, heavy-barreled, 28-inch barrel target rifle. The 521T was the junior model. It's lighter, it's a little smaller, the barrel isn't quite as thick, the stock's a little bit shorter, a little different dimensions, but the basic action is the same. So what we do with the bolt to work on this would also work on a 513T. If you're here just to find out how the bolt comes apart and how to put it back together again, you're going to want to skip forward a little bit because we're going to get nerdy for a little while. What's going on with this one is that it's not reliable. You get a click but no bang. With CCI, standard velocity ammo, less than 50% actually go off. With federal ammo, 100% reliable, but not really that accurate. And I don't like things that will only work with one kind of ammo. So there's a couple of things that could be happening. It could be that our firing pin is either broken or has been peened and is now too short. It could be that the spring is weak or has broken and it's not giving enough force to the firing pin. Or we could have a headspace problem, too much space in here. I have a new firing pin and a new set of springs on the way, but we're going to check for the headspace problem first because that's the one that has the potential to be dangerous. If the firing pin or the firing pin spring has a problem, it just goes click and doesn't go off. If the headspace is wrong, it has the potential to rupture a case and have gases exit out of here, and that's not a happy thing. So what is headspace? Headspace, in a very overly simplified explanation, is the distance from the bolt face to a point in the chamber. And if you're working with, it changes, it varies depending on what kind of caliber you're working with. This is a 243 case. On a bottleneck rifle case, the measurement is from the bolt face to a point on the shoulder. If you're working with a belted magnum, like this 7mm mag, the measurement is from the bolt face to the belt. If you're working with a straight-walled case that's rimless, those headspace off of the end of the case, so the measurement is from the bolt face to the little ridge where the case stops. If you're working with rimmed cartridges, this is a 45 Colt, but the 22 works the same way. Colt's just easier to see. The measurement is from the bolt face to the edge of the rim. Short version is it's whatever stops the case from going in. Wherever that particular case runs into something that makes it stop, that's what you're measuring against. So for a 22, these are the gauges that we use to measure it. You can't get in there with the action closed to measure anything. So you use gauges that you insert into the action. Yeah, let's knock everything over. That's helpful. This is one for a 308. Measures from the bolt face to the shoulder. These are for a 22. And they measure from the bolt face to the edge of the rim. And there's always a range of acceptable values. You have a minimum, can't be any smaller than that, or you won't be able to close the action. And that is called a go gauge. Of course, I pick up the wrong one. And it actually says the word go on it right there. Don't know if you can see that or not, but it says go. Then you have a no-go gauge, which is this one, no-go. And then there's a third one called a field gauge. I don't have a field gauge for a 22. The go gauge is the minimum. In this case, it is 0.043 inches, and that will be marked. See if I can get it to be in focus. It will actually say 0.043 on the gauge. The no-go represents the maximum when it is new. So manufacturing tolerances. And this one is 0.046. So you have 3 thousandths difference when it's new. That third gauge, the one I don't have, is the field gauge. And that is the maximum allowable safe clearance. That's the one that, if it closes on that, you send it back to the gunsmith and say, hey, this is not safe. So what I'm going to do is kind of fake it. I'll show you how here in just a second. So we're going to start by taking our bolt out. And this is the bolt face. This area out here is not. This is the bolt face. This is what the actual shell rests against. And technically, yes, you're supposed to take the extractors off when you do this. I find that makes it a real pain in the ass to get this out of the chamber. So we're not working with a bench rest rifle. This is a 22. So we pop our gauge in like that. And if I get the angle just right, you can see that the gauge sticks up just a little bit past the end of the bolt. This measurement right here, this depth, is 0.040. Measured that before we started. So this is 0.046. It sticks up a little bit. If this rifle were new, it should not close on this gauge. So we're going to carefully put this in. You have to, on this rifle, you have to pull the trigger to get the bolt in. And of course, why help me understand what your malfunction is. Nope. Okay. Why are you not wanting to play? Of course, now it works. So we'll try that again. Pull this out. Put our gauge in. Can we make it this time? Gotta pull the trigger. I know my hand is in the way. Okay, there we go. So now, should not close. Not the answer we wanted. So this closes on the 0.046 no-go gauge. That kind of matches up with what I suspected with why it wasn't working. These are rim thicknesses on 10 each of CCI and Federal 22 ammo that I just pulled randomly and measured. The Federal always goes off. Notice that its rims were thicker than the CCI. The CCI would go off less than half the time. So it looks like, to me, the 42 thousandths are probably the ones that went off. These 41s and the 40 would not. These did work. So I'm going to say if I probably want to reduce the amount of clearance by about 0.003. That would get all of these up into the range where it will go off. It might cause a few issues here. We'll find out. But first, we need to find out what it actually is. So we know that it closes on 46. That's too much. But how much is there really there? So I don't have the other gauge. What I do have is Scotch tape. Here's a piece of Scotch tape. How thick is Scotch tape? Scotch tape is 2/1000 thick. So if I take a piece of Scotch tape and I stick it to the end of that, I will have made a gauge that is 0.48. So I'm off camera here a little bit. I've just got a pocket knife and I'm just cutting a little piece of Scotch tape. And I'm going to stick it here on the end of our gauge. I know it's hard to see, but it's there. So we've added 0.002. Let's see what happens now. Still closes. I can feel some resistance though. So that's good. Always make sure that you get your tape back. So yes, our piece of tape is still there. Let's add another one. Let's see how deep this really is. From reading on the internet, I found that the field gauges, the maximum safe allowable clearance, the field gauges for 22s seem to be about 50. So we've got 46, we've added 4 to it. That would make it 50. So we put this guy back in, we pull our trigger. Okay, we're still closing, but I can feel it with some resistance. We have way too much headspace here. I'm not going to spend 6 hours trying to figure out what it actually is. So we're going to get our tape off of our gauge. Always make sure you get it back, because you don't want it just laying around. And yes, we have 2 pieces there. So we'll get rid of that. So how do we fix this? On a centerfire rifle, your options would be that you take the barrel out, put it into a lathe, and you cut the shoulder back farther so that the barrel comes farther in this way, and you close that clearance up by moving the barrel. On this particular rifle, this bolt comes apart in pieces. So we're able to put a shim right here and make it longer to take up that space. Now one question is, how did we get here? If I turn this just right, you can see that there's a shiny spot right there. That is where the lug wears against the receiver. And previously I measured that. The part of the lug that is not worn is 0.354. The part that is worn is 0.351. Hey, there's that 0.003 thing again. That matches up what we came up with here. But we know we've got at least 50 thousandths in there clearance. So we have a lot to work with. So we'll put these off to the side. We will get this out of the way. And now we're left with just the bolt. So how do we make the bolt longer? Well, looking around on the internet, I found these folks. Now, they did not pay me anything for this video. I did not receive anything for free. I paid for everything that we're using here, just sharing where I got the stuff. What these are, this cost $23. It is an assortment of different thickness shims. They look like that. So you take the bolt apart, and when you put it back together again, you put a shim or shims into this spot, and that closes up the extra space. So we have our list here of what they are. We'll put that up there. I know it's off camera. Gather these up and move them also out of the way so we have room to work. So this bolt is held together by this pin right here. And if we look at it, this end is slightly beveled. This end might be kind of a mushroom, but it looks to me like this is the end that goes in first. So it comes out this way. We want to push on that. It's going to come out this side. Now, this is spring-loaded, so when we push on that, if we don't control it, this whole thing is going to go sproing and send pieces everywhere. So I'm going to hold it here in my hand and put some, take this off so I don't scratch things up. I'm going to put some pressure on that to hold it. Then I'm going to get a punch and see if I can do this. Nope. Gonna have to hammer. So we need something to put underneath this so that that pin has a place to go. If you just hammer flat on your bench, you run the risk of driving the pin into the bench like a nail, and that's not a happy thing. So we're going to give it a little tap. I know my hands are in the way. I'm using a hammer to hit something. It's not that big a deal. So we've gone part of the way. And what I want to have happen is that I'm going to drive this pin out. It's going to be captured in here. Yes, this is just an ammo tray that I dug out of the trash at the range, but it's handy for this kind of thing. So we're going to drive the punch through, the pin comes out, and the punch ends up inside, and the punch will hold it all together. It takes the place of the pin. There it goes. See, now our punch is holding everything together. Here's our pin. And no, it doesn't really have a mushroom head here, but this end is beveled. So we know this is the end that goes in first. We'll put this over here in our little tray so that it doesn't roll away. Now, getting this apart without having it go sprawling could be an adventure. Let's see how I've got this out. Now, I'm holding it here with my hand. I know it's not quite on camera, and I'm just going to let the tension off. And there we go. Not that big of a deal. So we'll put this down here so we can see exactly how it comes apart, because we kind of need to know that to put it back together. As we go this way, we have this cone, and yep, it's pretty full of mung and nastiness inside, so we'll clean that. We have our firing pin spring. I'm not sure if it shows up well on camera, but that's got a bend in it. It kind of goes like this. So we will be replacing this, not this time, because I want to do one thing at a time and find out what actually fixes the problem. But we will be replacing this spring. We have this link here, and this part, when the action is cocked, it sticks out. Shows you that it's cocked. When it's fired, it looks like that. So those fit together that way. Then here we have a link, and the way this came apart, this open area right here was lined up with the hole where the pin goes. So we need to remember that. There doesn't seem to be a top and a bottom, just a left and a right, and yick. So now we have another pin. And let's get an idea of the arrangement here. The way this is supposed to go together is that when the bolt is down, this is on top. This faces into the action. So we just need to remember that. We'll grab our little punch, give it a push. There's our pin. Now we can separate things, maybe. Yep. There's our bolt handle. And there's our firing pin. And here's our bolt body. So that shim that we're going to put in is going to go between this and that. So it's going to sit in there in between those two. Now, this is just nasty in here, so we're going to spend a few minutes cleaning and just get all of this dried, built up nastiness out of here, because that's not helping us. I'm also looking at the firing pin, and it doesn't look bent. It looks okay. It's just dirty. I do have a new one coming. We'll measure it. We'll see if it does any good for us to replace it. That spring I definitely want to replace. So we're going to take a few minutes. We're going to clean. Get a new rag. Don't use your toothbrush for this. Always use your wife's toothbrush. She won't mind. Hoppy's tastes good. And what we're cleaning off here is probably several decades of old, dried oil, muck, powder residue, pubic hair, maybe a couple of beers got spilled into the action, don't really know. But it's coming clean. What you can't tell through the camera is that dried, caked on old oil was sticky. So it was definitely not helping with our firing pin strike. It was, I can imagine this firing pin did not move very quickly just because of all that mung built up in there. Very pretty case hardening. So we do, after we've done our scrubby, we do a little wipey. Okay, using my fingernail, see these pieces flaking off? That's more junk. So give that another little scrub. Okay, it's not perfectly clean, but it's probably cleaner than it's been in 50 years. So we're going to do the same thing everywhere. We're letting the hoppies do the work. Not really scrubbing very hard, and using a soft toothbrush. We want the chemicals to dissolve the gunk. We don't want to scrape the gunk if we don't have to. And if you do end up having to scrape, use something softer than the metal. Your fingernail works fine. You can see a little bit of wear here. Get down inside. Clean in here. Now if you wanted to change the extractors, this is where you do it. There's a pin there, and there's a pin there. You can see them here. And these are spring-loaded. So when you drive that pin out, that's going to go sproing. And I don't want to have to deal with that right now, because to put it back together again, you have to get everything just right, because the extractor itself holds the spring in. You need 3 hands to do it. So we're not going to do that today. Its extraction is just fine. The problem is it goes click and doesn't go bang. Now how do we clean in there? Well, my method is get a big bunch of hoppies, just kind of let it flow in there. And then we use Q-tips. Lovely. Yes, there is a slight amount of Glock built up inside. And yes, that will affect how the firing pin moves, because remember, our firing pin slides back and forth inside there. So we'll clean on this for a bit. I am not going to make this museum clean. What I'm doing is making it better. I've owned this rifle for almost a week, so there will be other opportunities to clean it. However clean we get it here, I guarantee you it will be better than it was when I got it. This way. Getting better. Doesn't look quite as bad as the first one. We'll do our wipey. Set those aside. Now be careful working with this, because these edges right here are sharp. That surprised me a little bit the first time I messed with this bolt. It's sharp. And yeah, you can open yourself up really, really well. I don't think it was intended to be sharp. I think it just got that way over the years, the way it was moving back and forth. We will get there. Clean, clean, clean. Clean guns are happy guns. No, I'm not going to start talking about, oh, and we've got a happy little tree over here. But that's kind of how you should approach cleaning. Cleaning makes things happy. All right, now we've got this piece. And this guy has a lot of that dried nastiness on it. Isn't it exciting watching someone scrub something with a toothbrush? So which is worse? That I'm making a video of myself scrubbing things with a toothbrush, or that you're watching it? Think about that. I'm going to bet that this is probably a mix of WD-40 and 3-in-1 oil from about 1963. Hell, just cleaning it may take care of a lot of our issues, just so that things can move. Be patient. It will come off. And if you run out of patience, just remind yourself that, hey, you made it better than it was. Remember what color this thing was when we took it out? And none of that was liquid. It was all solid and sticky and just nasty. Okay, so I need to get inside here. Use my Q-tip again. Okay, there's that. Do our pin. So how much are we going to put into this? How many shims? We know that it is at least 4 thousandths past the no-go. As the no-go was 46, and even with an additional 4 thousandths on it from the 2 pieces of tape, this thing swallowed that. Well, we aren't going to finish that metaphor. Let's just say that we'll name this rifle Marilyn, and you can go figure that reference out for yourself. I do recommend that if you are married, clear your browsing history after you figure out what that means. We're almost done cleaning. Then we can put this thing back together. So how much are we going to put in? I know it's got a lot of extra space in there. So I am just going to jump straight to adding 2 of the red ones. We're going to put 10 thousandths into this thing right up front and see what happens. And see if that is too much, not enough. It's a nice round number. Easy to remember. Don't want to take all that paint off. Now, what did I just do wrong? This piece came out like that. Get in here. Clean the outside. This is going to be another adventure with Q-tips. Ew. A bunch here on the end. Now this Glock here on the end, this is not going to affect how anything functions. It's in a spot where it's not going to be a problem. But we're here cleaning. And wow, this stuff is baked on there. That's going to have to soak for a little bit. Okay, so now we've got all of our pieces here. Let's find our 2 shims. And they're color coded, so we want 2 of the red ones. And here we have a red one. And here we have another red one. Let's check. Five thousandths. That is closer to 4. Oh, that's purple. It's not red. All right, where's my red one? Hello, red one. Is this a red one? I think it is. We'll measure 5. Okay, so we're going to put those 2 in. So we start putting stuff back together. I'm going to close up the hoppies. Put a little bit of oil on here to help this guy move. Just rub it around. This was in here like that. Now, one thing we didn't clean is down in there. That's the channel that the firing pin sticks through. I have a feeling we'll be back in here again. All right, so we'll put our 2 shims on. There's 1. There's 2. Next thing that goes on is the bolt handle. And we remember our orientation here. And we have our pin that fits through like that. Now we have our little stirrup shaped guy that goes in line with the hole. We have this. That fits right there. That's what acts against our firing pin. We have this guy here. Now, we have to assemble all of this and put this pin back in. So we're going to use our punch again. I'm going to squish. Come on. Well, maybe. Yeah, I know. This is kind of hard for you to see, but I have to be able to squish it. All right, so before I lose all of these, put them back in the envelope, put them off to the side. Now, how am... Hi! That's what I didn't want to have happen. So now I need to go find my spring and the little cone. I'll be back. Found them. And of course, they're on the floor, so they're all covered now in dog hair and other assorted fun stuff. So how do we do this without having everything fly everywhere? I think you're just going to have to deal with not being able to see everything, because I have to be able to squish this. I'm going to try. I have to get that lined up. Yay, got it that far. Okay, now we'll pull him part of the way out, but not all the way. We're going to squish, pull a little bit. Hey, that's probably what I needed to do the first time. All right, so I'm going to turn this sideways and show you what I'm doing. I took this and shoved it into there, and that holds it. So now I can put pressure on it using my forearm and not just my fingers. And that gives me the chance to put it all back together again. That is, of course, assuming I can get things lined up. So bear with me for a second here. I'm having to line up that little stirrup to make sure that it's where it needs to be in line with everything else. And boop, there's our pin. Okay, we have our bolt reassembled. It's cocked now. Let's pop this back in the rifle and see what we get. Clear our working space. Cheap punches. See that one? There is a place for good punches, and yes, I do have some. There is also a place for cheap ones. The cheap ones are really good when you're doing stuff like we just did, you know, where I stuck that punch in there to take the place of the pin, because I know that the punch will deform first. Not the metal that we're working with. The punch is the thing that will end up looking like that. So that's okay. This is like a $5 set from Harbor Freight. So here's our action. We're going to start out by just making sure that the bolt will go in just by itself. Okay, it does. Now we'll get our, this is our no-go, the 46. Pop it back in there. There's no tape on it. Pull our trigger, and now what happens? Wow, it still closes. Woo! So we added 10 thousandths to it, and it still closes on the no-go gauge. That's pretty awesome. I wonder how much are we going to have to put into this damn thing? And I'm also wondering how much it's going to move our sear engagement as we do that. Okay, put this aside. Now that we know how it comes apart and we know the trick, hopefully this will be a little faster. I'm going to try it this way the first time. Nope. So we'll drive our pin out again. It's almost there. You see the, yeah, quality stuff. I'm going to take the pressure off of the firing pin. See if that helps a little bit. Yep, get it out with my fingers now. So there's a secret right there. Take the pressure off first. So I'm going to leave that assembled. There, magically straight. We take this pin out, pull this guy off. Now we're going to put more shims in. What shims do we want? Let's make a big adjustment. We already put in 10 thousandths. Let's throw the 2 purples in. So that takes us to 18 thousandths. That's a lot. So 2 shims. We slide them on here. Okay. Now we're going to put him back on. We're going to put our bolt back, or not our bolt, our pin back in. I know I'm slightly out of frame there. We'll fix that. Now, put this guy back on. And we have to get that lined up so you can see through there. And I'm going to do this trick. And you just deal with it. I know you can't see, but I have to be able to see. And I also have to be able to hold this thing so that this will work. And my little stirrup turned. Come on, sweetie, why aren't you wanting to go back in there? Put you on there. We squish you down. We squish. Why aren't you squishing? Bear with me.
The kitty picking on you. The kitty picking on you.
Oh, there we go. Of course I get it now while I don't have a hand available to put anything in. Turn that. Get this. I think what was happening there is that that little pin was not coming out the end. There. Okay. Put him back there. Pin goes in. I'm using the punch to straighten out that little stirrup. That was awesome. Oh, good. Yeah, let's have everything fall apart. Yay. And yes, my videos are unedited. You get it as I do it. So once again, deal with it. We put this guy in, we make sure that goes like that. This goes in here. I wish I had a third hand right now. I do not. So we scoot this over. We line all that up. There's got to be a fixture or something that I can build that will make this easier. Or maybe I just fix the damn thing and don't have to keep taking it apart. Really? So, lesson. If you're going to do this, budget some extra time, because there's a good chance that you'll end up playing possum up the gum tree trying to get this pin back in like I'm doing. All right, I tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to quit screwing around with this. I'm going to walk over there and I'm going to put the whole damn thing into a vise so it will hold it in place, and then I can put this together. So I'll be back in a minute. Just trying to do it to where you could see. Oh well. Okay, lesson, takeaway lesson. Quit worrying about your damn audience and go put the thing in the vise so you can put it together and have it work. That took just a few seconds. What I did is I clamped this portion in the vise, and that let me push here and just stick that guy back in. So we need to give it just a few more taps. You can see it's a little bit proud of the surface. Give it a little push. Okay. Now we'll cock that firing pin again. Remember, it is sharp. There we go. Try it just by itself. Really? What is your malfunction now? Oh, that pin. Hey, that's better. Okay. Here is our no-go. Hey, yay, yay, yay. Good. Okay, we found the end. So now let's try this with the go gauge. This is the minimum. This one should close. The no-go gauge should not. The go gauge should. That's assuming that it actually stays on the bolt. Okay, take two. Go gauge. All right, go gauge is falling out. So we'll try that differently. Put our bolt in. Put our go gauge in place like that. It closes. Sweet. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to close on the go, and on the no-go, it should not close. Yay. All right, so slightly out of spec. It only took 18 thousandths to get it there. Now, I may dial this in a little bit because I think that we're probably at the absolute minimum headspace here. I may need a little bit of extra space for some of these thicker rimmed shells. It may be too small now, but we at least know now that it's within the safe range, and the work that we do to dial it in is really just going to be to get every type of ammo not only reliable, but not to where it gets crushed as you close it. So there you go. We got our headspace set. We took the bolt apart, I don't know, 19 times. You watched me struggle with the bolt for way too long. We learned that quit trying to do things on the bench where people can see it. Just go over to the damn vise and do it so that it's easy. And maybe even next time, we'll put the vise in the frame so you can see what I do. Next step, take it to the range. Well, next step, put it back in the stock. And then we'll take it to the range and see if it goes bang.